President, I rise today to strongly oppose the confirmation of Rachael Rollins to be U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts. Many Americans have probably never heard of Rachael Rollins, but they are becoming very familiar with the kind of lawlessness and dangerous crime that radical left-wing district attorneys like her have generated. Under their watch, we've seen looting and larceny and violent crime rates rise in cities all over the country the past couple of years. Ms. Rollins is part of a web of left-wing district attorneys across the country who see it as their job not to prosecute crime, rather to protect criminals. There's Ms. Rollins in Boston, Chesa Boudin in San Francisco, Kim Gardner in St. Louis, Kim Fox in Chicago, Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, and John Chisholm in Milwaukee, among others. What's happened with these prosecutors who refuse to prosecute crime? Well, all too predictably, crime rates have skyrocketed. Last year, the murder rate went up nearly 30% overall, and it went up 40% in cities with populations between 100,000 and 250,000. We've seen horrific crimes and tragedies that could have been prevented if these DAs had simply done their jobs. Take John Chisholm, the DA in Milwaukee, who released Darrell Brooks, a repeat and dangerous criminal, on $1,000 bail. What was the crime he was charged with? Using his vehicle, a red SUV, to run down a woman, the mother of his child. Released on a $1,000 bail. What happened? Brooks, as we all know, drove that same red SUV through a Christmas parade, murdered 6 people, including an 8-year-old boy. That man should not have been on the street, should not have been behind the wheel. The DA knew he was a violent criminal who used that SUV as an instrument of violence, and for $1,000, the left-wing DA let him go. Had Brooks not been out on such a low bail, this horrific tragedy wouldn't have occurred. That 8-year-old boy would still be alive. Our communities don't need prosecutors who endanger the very communities they're supposed to serve by refusing to prosecute or detain criminals. They don't need left-wing prosecutors who let violent criminals walk the streets. The damage that these so-called prosecutors can do has, thankfully, been somewhat limited by the fact that when they choose not to prosecute criminals, the federal government has the ability in many instances to step in and charge criminals federally. But Joe Biden and Senate Democrats are working to change that by elevating one of these radical leftist soft-on-crime district attorneys, Rachael Rollins, to be the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, the chief federal prosecutor in the entire state of Massachusetts. Let's talk a little bit more about what exactly Rachael Rollins believes prosecutors should do and what her record is. Rachael Rollins has been vocal and aggressive against prosecuting crime. She has been very clear that she came into the job of district attorney as a crusader. She has said, and these are her words, if you want to change the criminal legal system, become a prosecutor, because they have the power to determine charges, what crimes to decline to prosecute. About a prosecutor, it's not taking bad guys off the street. It's not seeking justice for the victims of crime. No, it is the power to say, I won't prosecute these crimes. And with Ms. Rollins, it's not hypothetical, because she is a district attorney. And as the Boston DA, she went so far as to write down, in quote, the Rachael Rollins policy memo, a list of 15 crimes whose prosecution, quote, should always be declined or, quote, dismissed without conditions. Charges on this list of 15 crimes should be declined or dismissed pre-arraignment without conditions. The presumption is the charges that fall into this category should always be declined. So you've got a DA saying, these are the crimes we don't prosecute, always be declined, dismissed without conditions. So you may say, okay, maybe this is like some sort of criminal justice reform. Maybe this is low-level, nonviolent marijuana possessions. Teenager got caught with a joint. We're not going to prosecute those. Look, reasonable people can actually disagree on that. We can have an intelligent conversation back and forth about that. But the beauty of it is we don't have to speculate because she put it in writing. These are the 15 crimes. They're upside down, as are her policies. These are the 15 crimes where charges should be dismissed pre-arraignment without condition. Number one, trespass. So I want you to think about it. If you don't want to see people trespassing on your property, well, under Rachael Rollins, the Democrats' U.S. attorney, we don't prosecute trespass. What else? Shoplifting. Does anyone watch the videos of the people breaking into stores and stealing and stealing and stealing and looting? You know what? Joe Biden and Senate Democrats, they're bringing that to a neighborhood near you. Shoplifting, we don't prosecute. That's what she says. Shoplifting, ollie ollie oxen free. You see a TV you like, pick that damn thing up and run out of the store. Because your friend, the fake prosecutor, is not going to charge you. Larceny. Really? Larceny? Larceny, we don't prosecute. Disorderly conduct. You're a single mom coming home at night. A drunk vagrant is yelling, screaming, cursing at your kids. You know what? Not a crime here. We don't prosecute that. What else? Receiving stolen property. Okay, this is at least intellectually consistent. If you're going to legalize shoplifting, rob the hell out of the stores, at least the fence can be on the back end. So you can steal that TV, go straight to the fence. By the way, I guess you could do it in the parking lot. Set up a van right there. We fence stolen property. You run in and grab it. I'll fence it right here. DA, all good by us. Driving with a suspended license. Well, sometimes that might be okay. What was it suspended for? Was it suspended for DWI? Was it suspended because you're a drunk who's killed people? Was it suspended because you're this homicidal maniac in Milwaukee who murdered 6 people? You know what? This DA says, hey, driving with a suspended license, no problem at all, no longer a crime. Breaking and entering into a vacant property without property damage. So any property that's vacant, you can break in and you're fine. Locks don't matter, burglar alarms don't matter. By the way, burglar alarm goes off, what the hell do? You show up, hey, you don't prosecute it, I'm staying right here. You may say, well, at least there's something reasonable. It's without property damage, right? Well, no, except the problem is number 8 on the list. Breaking and entering into a vacant property with property damage. So it doesn't matter. Break into the place, loot it, trash it, destroy it. All is good. in Joe Biden's criminal-friendly America. Number 9, wanton or malicious destruction of property. By the way, don't believe the Democratic talking points. This stuff isn't violent, really. Wanton or malicious destruction of property? Not a crime in Joe Biden's America. Threats. Threats of violence. I want you to imagine right now you've got an angry vagrant making threats of violence against your children. You call the DA saying, my family's being threatened, protect our safety, and what does she say? Not a crime. Oh well, stinks to be you. Threats are just A-okay. Minor in possession of alcohol, hey, great. Kids, drink up. Actually, the beauty of it is in Joe Biden's America, the kids can get drunk. They can drive, they can have their license suspended, and apparently they'll get a gold star at the end of it. Minor possession of alcohol, we've got Senate pages here. Just go down to the U.S. Attorney's office, they're serving margaritas. Marijuana possession, okay, I said we can debate marijuana possession. Reasonable people can disagree on that now. Doesn't specify the quantity. Teenager with a joint, you could say that may be a good candidate for diversion to something else. Drug dealer with several kilos of pot in the back, maybe you ought to be prosecuting that. Oh, and by the way, how do we know she doesn't just limit it to the kids with a joint? Well, what's number 13 on the list? Possession with intent to distribute. So drug dealers, in Joe Biden's America, drug dealers, it is legal. You can sell booze to kids. You can sell drugs to kids. You can sell stolen televisions to kids. She doesn't prosecute drug dealers. But look, at least it's just pot. And come on, we know, in states, a lot of states, pot's not that bad, right? It's just pot. Uh-oh. Number 14, non-marijuana drug possession. So for any Democrats ready to go home saying, hey, we just like pot because we're Democrats. Nope. Heroin, cocaine, LSD, fentanyl. Drug dealers who are poisoning our kids. In Joe Biden's America, we don't prosecute you. And number 15 is really the crowning jewel of this. Resisting arrest. So I want you to envision what this says. You can break and enter into vacant property and do damage. You can have a homeless person trespass on your front lawn, set up a tent, threaten your children, sell them drugs. And if a police officer shows up and tries to arrest them, they can violently resist arrest. And what does the DA say? All good by me. Not a crime. Madam President, this isn't a word. Nuts. This is crazy. And you know what? This is what the Democrats support. I'll tell you why. The Democrats are counting on the news media refusing to cover this. The Democrats are counting on ABC, NBC, and CBS. This is not news. The Democrats are counting on CNN. Will not cover this. Every single Democrat in this body has voted for Rachael Rollins. They had to bring Vice President Harris out to break the tie. And Democrats, when they go home, they like to say, we're not for abolishing the police. No. You know what? When you vote to confirm a lawless so-called prosecutor who says, I won't prosecute crime, you've abolished the police. cops can arrest them, but the DA will let them go. And what did she say? Dismissed, pre-arraignment, without conditions. This is radical and extreme, and I'm going to make a challenge to Senate Democrat colleagues. Some of you are in purple states, a few of you are in red states, some of you are in bright blue states. I challenge any of you in the bluest state of the union, go home to your constituents, get any gathering in a town hall, and put this chart in front of them. And ask your constituents, do the people of Nevada agree that we shouldn't prosecute trespassing or shoplifting or drug dealing or resisting arrest or violent threats? Do the people of Virginia agree that these are not crimes and shouldn't be prosecuted? And I promise you, in all 50 states, there is not a state too blue where your constituents would agree on this. And so what our Democratic colleagues are counting on is that people won't know. You know, before the vote, I spoke with several Democrats. I tried to tell several Democrats, this is a bad vote. This is a vote you are going to regret. This is a vote your constituents are going to be mad at you for. One of those Democrats said, well, the majority leader asked me to do it. You know, crack the whip, party unity, party discipline. The order from the Democrats in the White House is, this is the chief federal law enforcement officer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. God help you if you don't want violent criminals robbing your store. God help you if you don't want drunken, homeless people setting up tents in your front yard. God help you if you don't want drug dealers selling drugs to your children. Because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has said, those are all A-OK. And if you don't believe me, because in this bizarre partisan world, nobody believes the other side, read the memo. She entitles the memo, the Rachael Rollins Policy Memo. She wrote it, she put her name on it in writing. This is what it says. If we lived in a time of sanity, senators on both sides, Democrats listening to this, would say, hold on a second. That doesn't make any sense at all. Let's tap the brakes. By the way, one Democrat could stop this nomination. One. Every individual Democrat, you have the choice. It means every one of you is also the deciding vote. So when you go back to your home state, you single-handedly decided this lawless so-called prosecutor should be confirmed. I'll tell you this, you can never again claim you oppose abolishing the police, because this vote is front and center. Trespassing, not prosecuted. Shoplifting, larceny, disorderly conduct, receiving stolen property, driving with a suspended license, breaking and entering with property damage, wanton and malicious destruction of property, threats, minor in possession of alcohol, marijuana possession, possession with intent to distribute, non-marijuana drug possession. I don't ever want to see a Democrat stand up here talking about fentanyl. Fentanyl is terrible. I don't want to see another Democrat talk about the opioid crisis, say people are dying in New Hampshire, people are dying in my state. They are. And you're about to vote for a prosecutor who won't prosecute the drug dealers selling those opioids and poisoning our children, and won't prosecute resisting arrest. So if the cop comes, take a swing. To my colleagues on the Democratic side of the aisle, there is still time for you to stop this nomination. I implore you, listen to your constituents and do the right thing. I yield the floor.